Hi. How many of us remember that elementary school day where the girls and boys were divided and all the girls had to talk about periods? And it was very hush-hush and kind of like secretive, and the teachers didn't talk about it afterwards. It was just like this little container, and no one knew how to feel or what to say, and everyone felt awkward and received those little packages of pads and stuff. Yeah, that attitude of secrecy and kind of like shame is so present when it comes to, well, sexuality for sure, but also when it comes to our menstrual cycles. There's so much that we don't know about them as people who have wombs. There's so much that we're not taught. We're taught to kind of just take care of the blood when it comes each month and move on. We're not taught about how our bodies have cycles, and these cycles affect us on an emotional and spiritual level. And also, how many of us remember in health class in middle school or high school learning that women can get pregnant at any moment throughout the month? That's what I learned. That's like truly what I thought up until very recently. Like within, about like 6 or 7 months ago is when I really learned that women can't get pregnant every single moment of every single day. We're not fertile 100% of the time. So this video is about Fertility Awareness Method, which I started learning and using in June. There are tons of resources out there. Once you know about Fertility Awareness Method, then you like start seeing it everywhere. So I'm just going to do a brief overview about what it is and how I use it. Okay, as women, we're not fertile the entire month. We're only fertile when we ovulate. What is ovulation? Well, it means when an egg is released from the fallopian tubes, and eventually that egg will come out through the vaginal canal, but this is before you have your period. And I think when I heard the term ovulation originally, I thought it meant, oh, you ovulate on your period and it all comes out together. But no, it's usually, I don't know the exact numbers, but at least you ovulate generally at least 10 days, that's on the low end, before you have your period. So like 10 to 14 days is usually about when it is. It's right in the middle of your cycle when you ovulate. And the phase after you ovulate is called the luteal phase. And the phase before you ovulate is called the follicular phase. So basically, when that egg is released, that is when sperm can potentially latch onto it and fertilize the egg. But otherwise, it cannot. So Fertility Awareness Method accounts for 5 days because sperm can live up to 5 days in fertile quality cervical fluid. So Fertility Awareness Method accounts for these 5 days, meaning that your fertile window in the middle of the cycle isn't just when your egg is released, but it's also when sperm can potentially fertilize the egg. And because say if you have intercourse with your partner before you ovulate, but you have fertile quality cervical fluid, and then you do ovulate and the sperm is still alive, there's a chance that pregnancy can occur. Okay, so that's something. And what is cervical fluid? Oh my God, okay, well that's the other thing that I feel like my whole life I've been experiencing. Like I'll have a day where I look at my underwear and it's a little bit wet. I'll have another day where I look at my underwear and it's like creamy, or there's like some clear fluid, and I never knew that there was a pattern to this. I thought it was just random. I was like, maybe it happens more when I exercise, or when I don't know. I didn't really think about it, but I just started wearing panty liners every day because I thought, yeah, like it'll keep that area cleaner and fresher. So, and some people experience this as like thinking they have a vaginal infection because we're not taught that cervical fluid or cervical mucus, or formerly known as discharge, but in like the people I've been talking to and working with, they're calling it cervical fluid or cervical mucus because discharge has kind of a negative connotation. But yeah, what you maybe learned of as discharge is cervical mucus. Yeah, and it's so cool because it's like, this is like what sustains life. It's what creates life. And so it's ironic that we aren't taught about this because it's so freaking cool. Like, it's fascinating. Okay, so your cervical fluid changes throughout the month, and every woman's cycle will look different. Every body is different, and so there's no blanket statement, and that's the power in charting your cycles, because you can learn about your own cycle even if you don't want to use it for birth control or don't need to use it as birth control. It's powerful because you learn the rhythms of your body and you learn to trust them and to trust your womb and to trust your cycle. So cervical mucus, the general pattern is that, so okay, you'll have your period, and that's when a new cycle starts in the way that Fertility Awareness Method charts. A cycle begins on the first day of your menstrual cycle. Okay, and after your menstrual cycle, generally there'll be a few dry days where you'll have little to no cervical mucus. And then your cervical mucus will like start to form but not be fertile, and you may experience that as like a little dampness, or basically like the more fertile the cervical mucus, the more like stringy and like egg white is what they call the most fertile quality cervical mucus, and it's like what you think of as an egg white. So it's really like goopy and you can pull it apart. And then there's also like the creamy cervical mucus that sort of crumbles in your fingertips, which is a little less fertile than the egg white. But yeah, it progresses throughout the cycle, and yeah, there are like really specific categories detailed when in some teachings of this method. But the best way to find out how your cervical mucus looks is to begin charting it. And so Fertility Awareness Method is a blanket statement. It's like an umbrella term for various different types of birth control. And yeah, there are like ones that fall under Fertility Awareness Method. The method that I've learned is the sympto-thermal method. So how do you do that? You do that by charting your basal body temperature every morning. So I have this thermometer, which is the iProven thermometer. And so basically every morning you just, right when you wake up, just put out your tongue and you wait for like a minute, and then you see what temperature appears on the screen. Because the reason that this is effective is that once you've ovulated, once that egg has been released, then your temperature will spike significantly. And so if you've been charting your temperature from the start of your cycle, you'll see that, it'll fluctuate day to day a little bit, but you'll see a significant increase after you've ovulated. And how does this help you? Basically, once you ovulate, you know that if you wait, you count up to 3 days after you ovulated, and then you know that you're safe. You're safe to have intercourse and not get pregnant, because by that time the egg is completely gone. Yeah, the egg is gone. And so basically, as you start to chart your cycle, you get to know how your patterns tend to look and how much time you have at the beginning of the cycle to have unprotected sex without getting pregnant, etc. And so things out there on the market like the Daisy or Natural Cycles, various apps and things that kind of like do the work for you, they're based on the basal body temperature method. But the sympto-thermal method is cool because it combines the basal body temperature method with charting your cervical mucus. And so you might already know you've ovulated before you see the temp reflected in your chart, because as I said, when the temp shift occurs, that means ovulation has already happened. Okay, so here's an example of one of my charts. This is using the app Kindara, which I would recommend. I mainly use this app to chart. It just has like all the features you could ever want in a charting app, and it doesn't try to take control for you. You enter your temperature in each morning and it creates this chart for you. It's great. Yeah, and some people prefer to use paper charts, or they do both. I have done paper charts too. A woman that I learned fertility awareness from, her name's Natalie Daudet. I'd recommend her highly. I'll leave a link to her website, the Fertility Awareness Project. She's based in Canada, so if anyone's out there, connect with her. But yeah, she sent us some paper charts, and I did paper charting for a little bit. I think I want to get back into that too, but this app is great because it's so portable, and it really like provides a nice visual, I think, especially when you're getting started. So yeah, that's what sympto-thermal method is. And then there are some other optional signs that people like to do as well, like charting the position of your cervix. So your cervix actually moves up and down throughout the month. So it's like connected to your uterus in a way, and when you are infertile, it's going to be low, firm, and closed. So it's not a hospital environment for sperm to survive in. No sperm can survive there. And you can learn to feel that. It requires putting your fingers up into your vagina and like feeling around in there. And the first time I did it, I was like afraid. Like I didn't know like what to feel or how it should feel, but little by little you kind of get to know how it feels. And when you're fertile, your cervix is going to be really high up and open and soft and ready to receive sperm. Okay, so this is like a ton of information and kind of just put all out there in no particular order. And I just wanted to give this overview of what Fertility Awareness Method is, because it is like so incredible, and I am thankful to have never been on hormonal birth control, but I know a ton of people who are and who have been and who want to get off of it. And if this is something that you want to use as birth control or pursue or learn more about, I would recommend reading this book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Toni Weschler. And I know it's really fat, it looks intimidating. My friend Hillary, who recommended it, also said it looks intimidating, and then said it's not as intimidating as you think, and I totally agree with her. As soon as you start reading it, you realize how practical all the information is, and it's just like all these kernels of truth that I at least had been like aching to hear someone say who's in a position of authority, and it was just like, yes, like I'm not crazy, and it's possible to know my cycle and to love it and to have an attitude of reverence toward my fertility instead of fear. So good. So I would recommend reading this book. And also this book called Moon Time by Lucy H. Pearce is really cool. It's about, as she says, harnessing the ever-changing energy of your menstrual cycle, so learning to love your body and your periods. And then there's another one called Love Your Lady Landscape by Lisa Lister, who I have not read that book, but I've read a different book of hers called Which is also a good one. But yeah, this one and the Lisa Lister one are more about like the energy of your cycles, because that goes along with your fertility and fertility awareness method. But this one by Toni Weschler was like so incredible for me. And fertility awareness method in particular is really amazing and has been in my life, because I feel like I've had all these like emotional releases in the past few years and just like this intense like spiritual emotional growth, but integrating it has been hard. And fertility awareness method is a really practical way to like deeply be in my body and to have like the science behind it, knowing that this is real, and to kind of like bridge the worlds of spirituality and emotional things with like the practical physical aspect of being in a body. Yeah, so I've loved learning to chart my cycles, and yeah, the book will go over how to chart your cycles, and there are lots of resources online that you can find as well. And yeah, I hope this video provided some insight, like a little drop into all of this. And I know it can seem overwhelming to chart your cycle, and some people want like a form of birth control that they don't have to think about. But I will say that it's just a few minutes a day, and once you learn the mechanics behind it, then it is, I think, one of the most seamless methods of birth control. And you also get the added benefit of knowing your body and knowing when you are fertile and when you're not, and taking back your power of your menstrual cycle. And so I wish you all the best on your charting journeys, your fertility awareness method journeys, and in the path of remembering how to love our bodies. Thank you.